I can't think of any mechanism that would actually allow you to physically cause something to explode. All right, car hacking. That is 100% doable. Okay, they're looking at someone's camera, I see. If you are concerned about your camera being hacked, there's a very easy solution, and it's Hi, I'm Samy Kamkar. I'm a security researcher and computer hacker. Today we're going to be breaking down hacking techniques in the video game Watch Dogs. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes of Experts React. Oh, that's interesting. You could potentially see electricity. I mean, there's actually devices you can use to hold up to see power going through things, but you typically have to be pretty close. Actually, you could use something like a FLIR camera just to see heat signatures, because you would see heat, essentially resistive losses, going through anything with power running through it. So that might give you a similar visual field to what he's seeing. It is absolutely doable. Because it's a gate, you're probably going to want something like a clicker, right? Like a garage door clicker. So that clicker is going to communicate over a radio frequency, RF, within the electromagnetic spectrum. And with that, there's going to be a receiver connected to that system in order to trigger the gate, to trigger the motor. Now, that RF receiver is going to be looking for some specific signal. And typically that's a fixed code. It's like a password. Let's just say it's 12345. So if you ever send that 12345 on the right frequency with the right modulation and encoding, then the receiver will pick that up and say, oh, that's the right code. Now, the problem with a lot of these garages and gates that are controlled by these receivers is the receivers themselves, the code they're looking for, the password they're looking for, is typically a very, very, very small number. But rather than 12345, it's more like 123. And then each one that they sell, they just change the number. So in one case, the number is like 123. In the other case, the number is like 234. And this key space, or basically the amount of possible combinations, is typically so low that you can very easily build a device and program it to say, okay, I'm going to try code 1, and then I'm going to try code 2, I'm going to try code 3. And because you can send that at such a high speed, within seconds or minutes, you can then unlock most of these garages or gates that are using these fixed codes. It's like a password, and if you can go through all the possible passwords, you can actually open these. Traffic lights hacking. That's actually something that has been done. Traffic lights are typically controlled by these industrial systems that are really synchronizing a lot of the lights within a town. However, some of these traffic lights will also have additional mechanisms or additional systems that are connected. The older ones used to actually have these infrared sensors. So you'd see a sensor next to the traffic light. And the infrared they were looking for was a strobe at a certain frequency. And that frequency was configured based off that town's police sirens or ambulance or fire. So that if one of those sensors saw it, it would then say, oh, I know that's an ambulance or that's a cop car. I'm going to turn red for all the lights around me. And you, as an attacker, could potentially build a device that transmits the correct signal to, say, change the traffic light signal without ever even having access to this device in the first place.
Someone's got to be doing that.
Oh, interesting. That can be done. It depends on the vehicle. I demonstrated this with a device I created called OnStar, which can essentially take over OnStar vehicles and allows you to do things like unlock the vehicle, remote start, as well as turn on the alarm, even if it's really far away from you because they're actually internet connected. But it really depends on the vehicle and how they're setting that off, but this is actually doable. All right, car hacking. Unlock any car without breaking in. Yeah, that is 100% doable. Lots of attacks. There's the OnStar and RollJam, and Charlie Millen and Chris Valsek were able to do all sorts of stuff to vehicles. They were able to remotely control a Jeep Grand Cherokee that was on the road. So they've done some really awesome attacks.
Christ, I ain't never used one of these. How do I get it off? Oh!
Explosive hacking. Rig enemy's grenade. Well, that's probably totally doable because the people who are probably making grenades are remotely explodable. It's probably a super simple receiver, right? You're not going to spend years of research trying to make a really secure receiver that only explodes when you send, a very particular thing. You're probably just going to take some off-the-shelf component that you bought online, hook it up, and now you have a remote transmitter for it. And if I know of what all the common, ubiquitous receivers and transmitters are, I'm just going to brute force and send all of those. And I'll probably set off a lot of sort of off-the-shelf transceivers. They're not meant for security. They're meant for remotely turning on your light bulb. But someone who's building a makeshift bomb, they're going to be using that kind of stuff as well, most likely. Okay. I mean, you could definitely trick a device into believing it has more current capability than it actually does. Realistically, there's going to be some sort of breaker that will prevent something like an explosion. I mean, generally, when you have too much current, what you're going to do is you're just going to create a fuse. It will be a very, very, very tiny explosion, nothing you would even notice, right? You might see just a tiny bit of smoke. I can't think of any mechanism that would actually allow you to physically cause something to explode. You would need some sort of actual explosive material in there. The most you'd really see from something like this is a big spark, and then that's it. Anything else would really just self-extinguish because they're designed to.
Oh, no way, wow.
Okay, they're looking at someone's camera, I see. Intrusion detected. All right, they have an IDS. Intrusion detection system, that's cool. Yeah, there's definitely attacks that can trigger people's camera and microphone without them knowing. Most modern computers will have a physical light that's tied to the camera, so you know that it's enabled. But it's kind of interesting because there are methods of attacks where you can rewrite the firmware within the camera itself, because the light isn't just 100% tied to the camera being enabled, it's actually tied to a microcontroller. And that microcontroller enables the camera and simultaneously turns on the LED. So if you can rewrite the firmware of that microcontroller, you can then say, you know what, I want you to enable the camera, but do not turn on the LED. There's some pretty cool websites where you can actually see all of these misconfigured online cameras, all these IP cameras that are inside of people's homes, outside, monitoring traffic, all sorts of things. You can basically just go through hundreds and thousands of these cameras to see what's going on. You can just scroll and scroll and scroll and say, oh, that looks interesting, click on it and expand and see, and just jump right into that live view. If you are concerned about your camera being hacked, I mean, the likelihood is very low, but there's a very easy solution, and it's just to cover it up there. The attacks that are most likely to hit everyday users of these technologies are going to be things like malware, things that encrypt files on your computer because you opened an email and clicked a link that you shouldn't have, or downloaded something from an email that you shouldn't have. So I'd say in general, things to really protect yourself are: don't open untrusted links. Try to be cognizant and cautious when you're opening emails that are requesting you to do something or to download a file or open a file. I think the biggest thing that I see that consumers can be hit with is just the fact that they're using the same password on multiple websites. So if you're actually using the same password in multiple places, I definitely suggest just get a password manager. You only have to remember one password, and from then on you can have strong randomized passwords on every website you use. And if one of those gets hacked for any reason, they can't log into any of your other accounts because all of your accounts have different passwords. Those are the top things that will really protect, I think, most consumers. The interesting and fascinating and terrifying thing is that technology is really just invading everything. Even if you don't want to use technology, if you buy a car or if you buy a phone, it's going to have so much technology built in that you never even asked for. It has a huge impact, and I think a positive impact to our lives, but there is always a dark side to it. I've heard of Watch Dogs, and I've heard that it's hacking related. While granted, a lot of this isn't realistic simply just due to how fast he's able to do it, a lot of this is absolutely possible. So it's very cool, and it seems pretty fun. I think I'd be down to try to give it a shot. When I was 19, I got in a bit of trouble after releasing a virus. I was raided by the Secret Service. I got in trouble for computer hacking, and then I couldn't touch a computer for a couple of years.
Oh my god. Are you serious?
Yeah.